This program features live coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
This is why the Colomba Pride is such a firm favourite.
It's Kinky Tail.
He just looks ready for a fight. This is still her territory.
The Avoca boys are here to stay.
How insane was that? Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to a beautiful summer's day. The sun is shining, and, well, the weather is good, much better than it was this morning, and that is good because we are going to be celebrating all things, not skulls on top of people's head and witchcraft in the bush, but we are going to be celebrating our characters. That's right, it is another edition, in fact, number 39 of Safari Lives today, which is very, very cool. And so this is the show, basically, that it goes through all kinds of aspects of the characters that we see regularly. Now, this is about to fall off my head, so I'm going to try and do this with my head as still as possible. But essentially, like I say, we're going to try and focus on all of our characters. We'll catch up with all the ones we've seen over the past week, as well as talking about cute little fluffy spotted leopard cubs. So that's going to be the theme for this drive. I hope all of you are ready with tears, or tissues, should I say, not tears. There's going to be tissues that are going to be needed for tears. There's also going to be smiles and all kinds of other things as we reminisce about many of the cubs that we've seen over the course of Safari Live's journey, which will be quite fun. Good. Now, of course, I said to you, we're also going to catch up with all the other characters that we've seen, and well, they've been moving about both the Mara and the Sabi Sands. It was another fantastic week in both Djuma and the Mara Triangle. Djuma is looking as lush as it's looked in years after the recent rains. We started the week off in Djuma with the Princess Colomba. As always, she entertained us moving around the southeast. Kuchava, not to be outdone by her younger sister, was our most seen leopard this week, as she enjoyed a series of meals on Cheetah. The Nkuhumas also made a welcome appearance, before moving further north off our traverse. It was once again a hive of activity at the Djuma Den, with ribbons showing off her new additions. Not to be outdone by the other predators, the Sands pack made a surprise appearance on Chitwa's airstrip. And the Mara Triangle is receiving its first of the storms that come with the long rains. But the increased amount of water and vegetation certainly hasn't slowed the sightings down. Up north, the Sausage Tree Pride was still hanging around the escarpment, making the most of the ever-present buffalo that lurked there. The North Clan was not to be outshone by their southern cousins, as they too showed off some new additions. Salt Lick Pride was also seen to the south of the Salt Lick, and Moogie the young male cheetah made a welcome appearance to round out a predator-filled week. Well, it's been an exciting week, hasn't it? It certainly has been a predator-filled week with pretty much all of the apex predators being seen between Mara and Djuma. It really has been very, very good. Now, I didn't say who I was at the beginning of all of this. I was too excited to tell you the fact that we were going to be doing leopards and their dens. And so my name is Tristan. On camera I've got Gendre, who is looking like a chipmunk this morning, or this afternoon should I say. And the reason why is because, Gendre, did you move it? Gendre moved it. There was like a kitty bowl here that was Gendre's snacks, where he had some rusks and a coffee that was there from this morning apparently. So Gendre didn't move it. Gendre, why didn't you move it?
Because I needed snacks today.
Because he needed snacks today. Okay, excellent. And so we started the show with Gendre with a rusk in his mouth and his cheeks swollen like this, breathing rusk dust at me while I was trying to talk to all of you. That's why I might have sounded like I was a little bit distracted. But anyway, back to what we're really doing today. I said we're going to be introducing basically cubs and their den sites and how they all differ. So we're going to go through Karula's lineage that are the most recent ones. Obviously, it's a long lineage, but we're going to basically go through from pretty much Shongile and Hosana, and then we're going to go through all the newer cubs since then. So there'll be a little kind of view of Sindile. We'll also probably have some of Colomba, and obviously there'll be kind of differences between all of them and where they actually hang around. Now, we do have a few technical difficulties in the Mara, so hopefully they will be joining us a little bit later. Obviously, you saw that there are some clips for them, so hopefully we will see them a bit later. But in the meantime, I'm going to send you across to Sydney so he can say good afternoon to all of you.
What a beautiful impala right in front of us, a potential animal for the leopards. A very good afternoon and welcome on board. This is Safari Live. I am Sydney Fumurani Mikosi and I'm traveling with Senzo, who is my camera operator this afternoon. We are going to try by all means and see if we can find some lions. But for now, I have got this very beautiful impala here. And for in case if you need our attention, we are highly available on Twitter, #Safari Live. You can also follow us on YouTube chat stream. The most interesting thing about the impala is their dental structure. Impalas, they have got movable incisors. So they have got kind of a shallow socket. And this shallow socket helps the teeth in order to move up and down. When they are combing each other during the reciprocal grooming, they can be able to adjust their teeth so that they can have the hairs in between the teeth to get rid of the parasites. It's amazing. So this animal has got really movable incisors. So now let's go to Taylor, who is right at the Juma Den.
We're sitting at the Juma Den, so welcome, but unfortunately there's nobody home right now. But maybe a little bit later, the adults will come back and the cubs will come out. My name is Taylor McCurdy, and on camera with me today is Craig. Is that new? It's a new technique, Craig Scott. I've never seen him do that before. 2019, new year, new me, wonderful. Now, all sorts of wonderful things have happened this week. Obviously, we've had exciting things with the Cubs. Ribbon, she had some nice little surprises for us, which was great. So we're going to hang around in this area and not come back too late before checking this den again. And then there were lots and lots of leopards, which we will, from here, go and try and find some of them. I think what we should do is head straight towards Buffelshoek Dam and go and check that area out, because that is where, as of yesterday, Tingana and an unknown leopardess have been mating. But we haven't really been able to get a proper view of them because that leopardess is she's a bit shy, and lots of vegetation all around her in a dense drainage line, virtually making it impossible. But we'll keep trying and hopefully we'll get lucky this afternoon. Ready to go, Craig? I think we shall be gone. Bye, hyenas. Sleep nicely. Yes, that is correct, Emma. We can also get an update on Scuba Steve and Snorkel Sarah. They were there yesterday, but they might have moved on for a, change of scenery, a little Monday getaway. I don't know if people do that. Maybe hippos do. So we'll go and check out all those things. I think what we will do, though, is we'll probably go down the fire break. We'll try and go a different route and see if we can't spot some of the adult hyenas maybe lying around here. Maybe Corky somewhere. Perhaps we'll even see Ribbon just resting up, because it's been very humid today. So it wouldn't surprise me if the hyenas have found themselves a little pool of water to lie in. So that's what we'll also be doing. Okay, folks, we're going to keep heading straight towards Buffelshoek Dam now. Off you go to Tristan, see what else is hip and happening in the tent.
Well, good luck, Taylor. Hopefully you will come across those mating leopards and maybe the hyenas a little bit later. Obviously, very nice to see when Tingana is mating, and it's also nice that the more time we can maybe spend with that female, the better it will be. It will also be a good kind of sign as to how far is she moving into Juma, whether or not she plans to move here potentially if she has cubs. So it's really interesting kind of to see the two of them, and the fact that they're mating will bring us straight into basically what we're going to be discussing. Now, I said that we were going to talk about dens, and we often get a lot of questions about leopards and denning and cubs and all of those kind of things. And so if you have any questions about these kind of things, today's the day to ask them. But essentially we're going to start off with is we're going to see a first kind of clip of when we first ever saw Hosana and Shongile in a den site. So this is when Brent found them. They must have been between sort of 12 and 24 hours old, somewhere there. And we know that because Brent saw them in the afternoon, and then the following morning he managed to see them in the den site. So essentially what we start off with is we've got a very thick, dense area that is kind of almost tangled with roots, and just in the background there you can make out a paw of Karula and then the movement of some tiny little leopards. Now, very few people would have seen leopards of that size. They are minute. At this point, they're still kind of blind. They're not really able to do anything, and they can't fend for themselves. Now, I'm just going to pause it quickly because a lot of people ask me, why do leopards choose certain dens, and what are dens that they would possibly use? Well, when a leopard goes and looks for a den, it's basically going to try and find itself somewhere that is really well hidden, firstly. Secondly, that's really difficult to access for any of the other predators that could be around. So things like hyena, things like lion, and other leopards, they've got to be difficult for those to access. And they've got to be in a place that basically provides those little cubs with some form of shelter. So it's got to be somewhere that's out of the rain, out of wind, and kind of can keep them in a place where they can stay nice and warm and insulated. And so if you look at the den that we have here, it's basically an entanglement of roots, and you can see it would be very difficult for a big animal like a lion to get in amongst all of this root system. They would really struggle to be able to kind of see or wade through that. The other thing is that this was right up on a bank. So this is on a steep bank on the Mulwati. And that steep bank means that it would be very tricky for things like hyenas to be able to get in. And they would really struggle to be able to kind of actually see whereabouts they could get to those little cubs. So it makes a super safe spot for cubs to be born. What's really interesting with this particular den is that this particular den was obviously one that was really well used by many of the leopards in this area. In fact, I spoke to Rex about it, and he said that Karula was born here, and that will then give you an idea. I'm going to play the clip on because you can't see too much. You'll just see a tiny bit of movement in the background there. But essentially, the little cubs at this point are still kind of staying right in the thickets, but they are used by multiple different females in this area, and we'll get into this den and how many different individuals have used it. But Ramit, you're just asking how often they change the den. Well, that's always dependent on the individual that we have out here. I find with Tandi, she moves her dens quite regularly. She didn't really hang around too much. We know that she spent a few weeks in the initial den, which was the termite mound close to Giraffe Dip. Then from there she moved into the Mulwati, and she was there probably for about 2.5 to 3 weeks. In fact, more. It was about a month actually. And then she moved again to the Mulwati, and from the Mulwati she changed the dens quite frequently. Then it was only sort of week 10 days at a time, and she used to, even though they wouldn't move far, maybe 20 meters, 30 meters, she just constantly moved them around. And the reason for that is that as these little ones get bigger and older, they're defecating, they're urinating, and that's causing a scent to develop, and it becomes then much easier for predators to find them. And not only big predators like hyenas and lions, but things like even snakes. Snakes are going to start picking up on those scents, and they're going to be coming in. And pythons are a real big threat to leopard cubs when they're this size. At this size, basically, they're, as you can see by that, I mean, that little cub there, which I think it was Hosanna that you could see there. I don't know if we ever identified which one it was, but it was one of the two. Was only the size of that back little section of Karula's foot. So that gives you an idea. I mean, that's about this big. It is absolutely tiny. And so for a snake, a bird of prey, this is something that can be eaten very, very easily. And you'll find that they'll kind of be able to grab them and kind of, basically feed off them. So that's a huge danger, and that's why these kind of dens are really the best thing for these animals to have. A leopard really should have a den that is completely encaved with grasses and tree roots, and it basically makes this kind of hollow out that they can go into. Now, they don't only use these, obviously, they will use termite mounds and other things too, but these are the kind of typical den sites that we see in this particular part of the Sabi Sands. Most of them will be in some sort of drainage line somewhere where there's at least it's kind of entangled roots and ability to have steep banks and lots of shade and those kind of things. So it's a good place, but it also comes with its own dangers in that if they den in summer months, these are places that can potentially flood, which is obviously quite difficult. Right, now, Lily, you're saying, who's 8 years old, I always like it when Lily asks questions because she often asks thoughtful ones, but you were saying that you didn't know that leopard cubs or leopards reuse dens. And so it's interesting, this particular den site, so Karula apparently when she was a cub, was actually inside that den at one point. Then she had Shadow and Tandi, they were put there. I don't know about Shavinzi and Shivambalana if they were there, but Quarantine and Konyuma also went there. Nduna and Mishu, I believe Rexon was telling me, was also seen in this particular den site. And then obviously Shongile and Hosana, and then following that, Tandi put Colomba in this den too. So it gives you an idea that a mother who was kind of housed in this has obviously learnt that this is a great place, and the fact that she's come to where she was housed as a little cub is absolutely fascinating. And so this den site has seen multiple litters of leopard cubs, and what's interesting about it is pretty much all of them that have been housed in there have been successful in that really kind of dangerous time. The first 3 months of a leopard's life is its most dangerous. It's got so many different things that it's got to worry about, and you find they get attacked by all kinds of different things, and they're not able to actually do much themselves. So they really need a den site that is completely kind of hidden and well thought out basically by the mother. And so this one is obviously one of those, because the fact that they are able to have so many different little ones go through that, and all of them seem to have survived that particular den site, which is quite incredible. So Karula obviously was quite smart, or Safari was quite smart, and then Karula on from there, and Tandi obviously picked that up, and it'll be really interesting to see if little Colomba, when she eventually has cubs, uses it as well. It'll be quite an interesting kind of experiment. Anyway, we're going to kind of carry on chatting about things. Like I say, hopefully you're going to enjoy the fact that we're going to be seeing all little leopard cubs. In the meantime, though, let's send you back across to Taylor and see if she's managed to find those two that will hopefully be making little ones.
If you watch very carefully, you can watch that elephant that is now not very happy chasing the hyena away. But unfortunately, they're off-road and we can't follow them. It looked like Ribbon. I think it was Ribbon that was marching on, so maybe she's heading home. That would be very nice. But unfortunately, hyena has gone too far off the road for us to follow. Being encouraged by that young one, though. Look, you can see the tail in the air. Not particularly impressed. She probably just trotted off and went the long way around. Hyenas don't really care. They just kind of do what they want, even if it means marching through an elephant herd. I don't know if they're bold for doing that. But there's a couple of elephants around here too. Look, there's a youngster here who's kicking around part of an elephant bone. Now, there was a big elephant bull that died here a little while ago. He was tusked by another elephant bull, and this is where he unfortunately passed on. You can see, you can maybe even hear the elephant as it picks up the heavy bone. Looks like the pelvic bone. Now kicking it around. And done with that now. Deborah, yes, it is a very, very beautiful sight, isn't it? I love spending every day with elephants, and now this young elephant bull is probably going to give He's just sort of testing the boundaries at the moment. There was a big elephant bull in us doing that to my car. I probably wouldn't be very happy about that. Yes, young man? Now, if you're wondering why he was playing with it, sorry everybody, it seems as though the gremlins got us. The interweb and technical things that I have no understanding about. Something went wrong, so you were frozen. I was frozen for a moment in time. We were just talking about the elephants, and then I was going to mention to you about why they play with bones. Now, elephants are very curious animals. I've seen them moving carcasses around often of various animals, from a Impala to a hippo carcass, buffalo carcasses, and then of course their own elephant carcasses. And I think they're intrigued by the bones. I'm sure that they're intelligent enough to know that it was an animal. Whether or not they can able to tell that there is, an individual that they knew, I don't know. The bulls don't typically hang around with herds. They move on quite early in life, and it wasn't a very, very young bull, if I remember. Michelle, now you've asked about Daryl, who's an elephant that I've been following for quite a few years now, and you're wondering if I've seen him. I haven't seen him for ages. So he normally lives down in the southwestern corner of the Sabi Sand on a reserve called Sabi, and at a camp called Earth Lodge. That's where he typically likes to hang around. Then he comes up almost like, I think it's about once or twice a year that Daryl visits this area. We don't see him very often. He goes on a bit of a walkabout, and normally when he's in must and in search of the ladies. I quite like that tail just popping out every now and then. You wouldn't think that an elephant could hide away, but they can. Now, elephants, unlike the leopards and the lions and hyenas that use dens to look after or to stash their young away while they sort of develop and eyes open, it's completely different for these large herbivores. They'll just give birth after 22 months. That's a long time. So that little one's eyes will be open. It'll be a bit wobbly on its legs in the beginning, but it will get the knack of them eventually. But they just live right next to mum. Wherever mum goes, so will the little elephant. Very nice. Okay, we're going to revert. Oh, although, Craig, there's a couple walking through. So they're all off. All these elephants are off-road, so we can't really follow after them. And they're not really coming out. I was hoping that they would all feed like this into the middle. But that doesn't seem to be what is on the elephants' minds today. So we're going to carry on Triple Hook, as we said before. And maybe we'll find some more elephants there, snorkel Sarah and the rest of the hippos. Or if we go to Tristan, who's going to tell you more about leopard cubs.
Oh, well, Taylor, sometimes your cinematic shots don't quite work out. But, you know what, maybe at some point in the afternoon things will get better and you'll find your leopards and then it will be cinematic and you'll get everything that you want. Now, there's a tractor driving past. Be quiet, tractor, we're talking. They're not listening. This is not what is supposed to happen. They're supposed to listen and kind of pay attention to what we're saying. Anyway, so we obviously, Taylor was just alluding to the fact now that elephants have a 22-month stage where they will give birth to little ones, and we've been chatting about obviously leopard cubs and their den. So to get to that den point, a leopard female is going to obviously go into an estrus. She's going to mate, and then from there, if she falls pregnant, if it's a successful mating, it's going to be about a 3-month period until she gives birth. Now, normally what you find with leopards is that depending on the size of the litter will determine how quickly you can tell when they're pregnant. If you take Tundi, for example, when she was pregnant with Colomba, quite tricky to tell that she was pregnant until quite late on. We actually only figured out that she was pregnant, I think, it was probably about 3 weeks, if I'm not mistaken, before she actually gave birth, maybe even 2. And then she dropped, obviously, the 1 cub, whereas Karula, when she was pregnant, was very noticeable that she had 2 cubs inside her, obviously a much larger tummy. And then you even get some leopards that will have 3 cubs, which is incredible. And I know that there's been a report of even 4 up in East Africa. But anyway, so they'll then start seeking out a den. And a den process is not just walk up to the nearest hole and have their little baby and that's the end of it. Generally, what will happen with them is that they will move around and they'll try and kind of sniff things out. So they'll go to termite mounds, holes in the bank like what we saw earlier, trees, and they'll try and figure out where's the safest option. Generally, it's in the core of their territory. So prior to that denning taking place, they're going to go out and they're going to mark heavily all around the edges, and they're going to really do a lot of patrolling to try and make sure that they buffer those edges out. And so that while they're incapacitated when they give birth and have to stay quite local, that there's no intrusion from other females. So you'll find that they'll do a lot of marking around, and eventually then they settle on where they're going to have their cub, and they move in and they're going to have their cub. Now, that's for the most leopards. Then there was Shadow, who I had a funny story with Shadow once, and we'll get to her a little bit later. But the one time we found her, and she was heavily pregnant when she gave birth to the litter before Not Barbara. And she was heavily pregnant and she was eating this impala, and the impala had freshly been killed. I mean, she had really just started to open it, and all of a sudden her eyes just went massive. They went wide, and she stood up and she just started running, and she ran all the way from this impala carcass, which was close to kind of the Simamili Arethusa cut line, and she ran all the way to basically where Red Dam is. Now, Red Dam is in the center of Arethusa, not actually too far from Triple M, and she disappeared in that drainage. And then about 3 days later, she was spotted with those cubs there. So it was almost like the pregnancy and her giving birth caught her by surprise, and I promise you the look on her face was hilarious. It was like she really needed to go to the toilet. If somebody's ever had something where they've been a bit ill and that happens to them, and she just ran and off she went into the thicket. But anyway, now going on to kind of dens and different structures of dens, we looked at what we had initially. So that initial den is a den site that would have been used for very small cubs. Those are cubs that are not able to move yet, still kind of very much reliant on mom in terms of keeping them safe. They have no idea about their environment, and so that tangled kind of mess is really good for them. They're not really exploring at that age, but they then start to graduate and start to move on. And basically we've got the next den site is Colomba. From when she moved from that den site we just showed you with Shongile and Hosana, they then moved into the Mulwati, and she chose something slightly different. So if you have a look, they've used here a big kind of tree that's fallen over and a natural cavity that is formed, and that is the perfect spot for a little leopard cub to spend time. And isn't she cute? Oh, it's so nice to look at these little images again. I'm sure a lot of you are going to love the fact that we're looking at all the little baby leopards, and you can see at this point she's now developed. So at this point in time, she was now already about just over 3.5 months when she was moved here. 3 to 3.5 months when she was moved to this spot. And in fact, I think she had even been here for about a week when this clip was taken. And so she developed a little bit more. You can see she's actually able to move around, still a little bit kind of skittish and nervous. At this age, it's not really seen too many vehicles. Paper, behave yourself. Paper's not behaving herself because there's a wind that's kicking up. And so she wasn't really used to vehicles yet, and she was just kind of figuring things out. And so basically it was all about emerging from these dens, and now the world of a leopard really starts to come out, and this leopard will start to move and start to look and start to see and start to experience and to know things. And so it's going to rely heavily on its mother. And if we carry on with the clip, you're going to see that she starts to come out, and she looks, and she's kind of nervous to move around too much. She's trying to just see, okay, where do I go? What's kind of going to happen, and how do I negotiate this little gap that I'm in? And you can see she's a bit wobbly on her feet, so most of her movement will be very localized around that area. And then what you're going to find is that she's going to be carried around by mom to different den sites through this phase. But she's now starting to learn to explore. So her eyes are opening, she's starting to hear, and all the visual cues around her are going to be things that are going to be valuable experience going forward. So she's going to learn about alarm calls. She's going to learn about the fact that this is a safe place and how to negotiate that area around it to get back to that central point to be able to hide out. And so these are vitally important kind of dens for very small cubs. And you can see Tundi can't actually get inside there at all, so that hole that is there, I'll try and kind of make it a bit bigger again, but if you look at the sort of gap here, Tundi won't be able to fit in there. So what she's going to be doing now is, rather than going to the cubs and allowing the cubs to suckle, she's actually going to call this little one out now, and the little one will go out. But that's a perfectly safe place, because things like hyenas and various others are not going to be able to get in there. Now, Debbie, what is the most unusual place that I've seen a leopard use in terms of denning? Just trying to think. Probably man-made structures, which sounds odd, but is perfectly designed for a leopard. So I've seen Salahesh, Ravenscourt, Scotia to a degree. She used a certain part of Kirkman's. They all used underneath decks, so they would go and they would give birth right under the decks, close to the room. So right there's a narrowing. So normally what happens with decks is the deck will come out, and the landscape underneath normally slopes, because most of these places are built on the edges of either a dam or a river, and so there's the bank that comes up. And so what happens is there's this narrowing effect that takes place with wooden slats. And so for a leopard, she can come up, give birth, and those cubs can be hidden right in that tiny little gap where nobody else can get to, and then she can call them and they can come stumbling down and she can suckle them there. So that's been a place that I've seen leopards give birth. There was a leopard that gave birth in Kikarok up in the Mara. That gave birth in one of the cell phone reception tower places. There was a little cage, and she went in there and gave birth. So they'll use those quite a lot of times. In terms of natural structures, there hasn't really been a surprising one. Leopards are very clever in where they use dens. They are quite kind of selective. They're not going to just go about finding anywhere and just dump their cubs. They will try and choose very good termite mounds or holes in banks. Shadow used to be a big fan in Kruger too, big fan of pipes underneath the road. So on Triple M, Gowrie Main, there's quite a few pipes that actually go underneath the road for drainage, and they put them inside there. It's a great place. I mean, it's a small pipe like this, so really only they can fit in there, and it's long enough that they can kind of hide away from predators that come on either side, bar something like a python. So, they use those, but generally they're very, very good at selecting den sites, particularly natural ones. They're not going to just rush off into anything. Right. Now, we're going to see what else we can discuss and what else there is going to be. But in the meantime, it sounds like Taylor is still moseying her way along towards where the leopard couple was yesterday.
So one thing I haven't done this afternoon is I haven't gone searching for Colomba. Well, if we're unsuccessful at Buffelshoek Dam in finding Tingana and his mystery princess, then we might also do a little bit of a sneaky loop-de-loop and search some of Colomba's favorite areas. Because, well, in the past week, she hasn't really changed her route much, which has made it quite easy for us to try and find her. Colomba had her face buried in the thickets, intently looking at something. It was a scrubhead that caught her attention, and this provided the perfect opportunity for the young leopard to practice her stalking skills. However, it wasn't fruitful. The next day, it seemed that the princess was embracing her inner teenager, lounging about and enjoying the occasional nap. Having enjoyed a lazy day, it seemed her hunger from the day before persisted, and she scanned around looking for a possible meal, hoping to put those practice skills to use. What it is. Don't worry, my hair is also on the frizzy side of things today. Okay, I'm not really sure what's happening. That's okay. Craig, let's carry on. We shall keep going. There were some serious glitches. Sorry, everybody. Feels like the delay has increased. Anyways, so we're going to just carry on. We're going to still heading. Yeah, we're not far now, maybe another 6.5 to 7 minutes and we'll be there, so that's not too far away. But I suppose on the way back from Buffelshoek Dam, like I said, if we're unsuccessful, we can go down and check Drakensberg and check Mamba, check the Mulwati, somewhere around there. Hopefully she'll be that side. I think I heard something about the lions, or a lion or lions being down near. I'm not really sure about that. I can't remember. I think Tristan told me something about that. But we went past Twin Dams and we didn't see any lions, but I wasn't really looking. It always only stay on one side. That's where we had the elephants, of course. We were right up on that northwestern sort of road. It wasn't really. Yeah. What else? Oh. Quite lovely to see how Colomba has grown. It's been quite have another leopard that we found right from the beginning of their life. So that's it. I was sad though, I didn't get to spend with Colomba. I was in the Mara, which was awesome. Colomba was so precious. She was so tiny. And watching shows, big blue eyes, and watching her first time. It's pretty amazing. And I've only really got her now. I've seen her quite a few times. And she's much like I think she's going to be gremlins getting me again off the tent and leopards all afternoon.
Taylor, you've got all of the gremlins and we've got baboons that are going absolutely crazy close to where Taylor camp. Sounds like there's lots and lots of fighting that's going on there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they may be having a full go at each other. Now, of course, baboons can be really dangerous to leopard cubs. They are something that a leopard has to be very careful of. Obviously, leopards can hunt baboons, but it's a bit of a fallacy that leopards are super dangerous to baboons and that baboons are not dangerous to them. I've seen many leopards chased by baboons, particularly big male baboons, normally on females, obviously, and cubs, and you find that those females will be very nervous with their cubs and they'll try to get them away. And if a baboon can catch a cub, well, there's no ways that that cub is going to be able to defend itself and be able to actually fight that baboon off. So you have to be very careful when it comes to baboons. And so hearing these guys around you, I always kind of think about those kind of situations. And like I say, many leopard cubs have lost their lives in it. Now, basically, as the kind of dens, we were talking about how they first start, and then life starts to change for leopard cubs. They start to move a little bit and start to, the wind is creating havoc with our tent. They start to move a little bit and they start to explore a bit more, and dens become less important as they get a little bit older. So life starts to change a little bit. Now, we saw initially that clip of Shongile and Hosanna in this very sort of sheltered place, tiny, weren't able to do much, were just kind of writhing around almost like they were kind of, incapacitated really. But then we fast forward a few months and we go to when they get to about 3.5, 4 months old, and they start to move a lot more. And what you're going to find here is how the mother's role in things is very, very important. So if you see how Karula here is busy calling, so she'll let out a few. So we'll just go back slightly so we can see that and kind of just show you her kind of way about her and the way that she's going to manipulate those cubs and get them to explore is very, very important. So basically what she does is she will kind of call and she'll make the sound that the cubs will know is mom. All right, so every leopard's voice, much like us as people, is very different to the leopard. They're able to hear and determine the difference, and so she's going to let out these little sounds and she's going to call them through a series of either soft little vocalizers, or she's going to use what's called chuffing. Now, chuffing is a sound that a leopard makes, and it goes a little bit like and she'll do that, and that little leopard cub's ears will prick up and it knows that it's contact to come. And the reason why she makes that sound and not a full-blooded saw is because if she saws, a male might hear her, another female, and that's going to attract attention to her, and that's going to bring others in. When she makes that short little sound, that little chuff, it's close, it's an intimate sound, the cubs know, okay, it's safe to come out. And so basically what Karula did is she called and she waited and she listened, and eventually the cubs start to move out. And in this particular clip, it's quite sad because obviously little Shongile is in it as well. You can see, look at how the leopard is moving in this. If we just pause it, when she gets through a little bit to there, you'll find that she's low down and she's crouching and slowly kind of moving her way along, trying to stay as hidden as possible. So the instinct is already there to be able to try and kind of hide away. And she goes straight to mom, and bonding then starts to take place. And you'll find that these grooming sessions are vitally important. And the reason why they're vitally important is, one is because that little cub is bonding with mom, and you can see now there comes the other one. But look at the difference already in posture. So I'm just going to pause it now before we go into this one. The first cub that we saw coming along was Shongile, a little bit more kind of timid, a little bit kind of low down, and trying to kind of crawl. And what people don't realize with leopard cubs is that they're all different. They're all got their own little way. I mean, a lot of you that watch the show a lot will know that all our leopards have a different character. They have a different way about them. They like to be different kind of animals, and then their behaviors are very different. And so you saw there, coming in, Shongile was a little bit crouched, a little bit low, kind of just sort of a bit unsure, but mom's call was making her come along. And then comes Hosanna, and he's a lot more kind of brazen about the way that he walks. You can see he just strides straight in, much like he was, and is quite happy to kind of follow mom around. What you can also see in this is, if we stop it, no, it's gone past. There's a little Shongile. Isn't she just so cute? I'm just stopping it there because she's this most super cute little baby. She had these brown eyes that were beautiful and big, and you can see all the spots are still kind of squished together when they're at this age. They haven't quite gotten their sort of patterns that have grown out. But what you can see at this age is that already you can identify a leopard through its spot pattern above its whiskers, and it's why whisker patterns are used, because even as a small cub, so if I just grab a little stick to show you, even as a small cub of this age, I mean, this is a tiny leopard, you can see the facial spots have not really formed. All of these are kind of just blotches that are together as they grow, so some of these will kind of widen out and things will change slightly. But these whisker spots that you see running over the top of the whiskers will always look like this. Doesn't matter how old this leopard gets, those spots are not going to change. So these are why we use these spots, and how we're able to kind of identify these animals through this. And so it's just a really cute little picture of, and you can see kind of a little bit nervous. Mom, is it okay if I approach? Can I start to move? Whereas Hosana, you'll see he's just got confidence supreme. He just comes bounding along. So that was, if we go back and just play that again, I'll show you now. Sorry, I just got to try and pull it back for myself here. If you see, she's kind of nervous, so she sits and she waits, and then she starts to kind of crawl towards Karula, whereas Hosana, his nature, and you can see it there, is completely different. So she starts to kind of move along, and then Hosana kind of comes bounding along, and he's a lot more kind of brazen in his approach. So you see it like that. Absolutely amazing, the difference between the two of them as they go along. There's a very, very clear distinction in how Hosana behaved versus Shongile, and she was a little bit more timid and shy to start off with. Obviously, we know in the end she became a very relaxed little leopard, but you can see the difference between the two. And what you can also see is the size difference. So if you take a look just even at the leg structure of these two, when they start to walk, you will find that Hosana is already a little bit bulkier than what little Shongile is. Now, I think it was Christy. When do the eyes start to change on these leopards? Well, they don't change quickly. It's a gradual process. And generally what happens is the original husky, sorry about that. The eye color is a gradual lightening that normally takes place. There's very seldom is there a complete change of color, but it becomes a lot lighter as they get a little bit older. So Shongile went from this very kind of brownish color, and she just lightened, and she came a little bit more kind of an amber color when she was a little bit older. And Hosana, well, his eyes were quite sort of similar to what he actually had towards the end, and then you'll see that they kind of move along. But it's such a cool picture to see the difference between the two of them in their body structure. And wasn't this just quite typical of how the two of them were in life? Both of them were this very kind of sort of signified how they would be as they would grow up. Little Shongile a little bit more kind of aware of what was going on, and then they would approach Mom, and it was amazing that Karula would let these little cubs get as close as she did. Absolutely amazing to have sightings of a leopard and cubs at that distance. And you can see little Hosana is now going to get the best grooming, and this picture right here is one of my absolute favorites, is because Taylor and I were laughing. It almost looks as though he was kind of playing around with his face, and it's almost getting a little facelift moment. He's kind of getting his eyes kind of pulled up, and that's the surprised Hosana that he has there. And he kind of got himself nicely groomed by Karula, making sure all those little ticks are gone, particularly because that time of the year you can see there was a few green things. And then typical Hosana on his back, barely getting kind of groomed. There was already a clown back then, but a very, very cute clown. And obviously, like I said, this is all very important, and he wants milk. That's also why he's trying to approach her. And you can see little Shongile not so sure. She's kind of backing away. She's not as convinced by the presence of this vehicle, and so she starts to kind of creep around, tries to stay as low as possible. Their instinct to try and hide really very, very, very strong in her, as opposed to Hosana, who was completely relaxed. And then you can see Hosana waddling off with Mom. He already had his I've got a large Betty waddle, and then eventually Shongile will kind of catch up with them, and the two of them will kind of walk off. So very, very, very cool to see. And when you see these kind of things, you realize just how spoilt, exactly, Emma sausaging from day one was Hosana, but how spoilt we were to have Karula. And Taylor and I were actually saying we miss her in many respects. Tandi is a fantastic mother, but is a very different leopard. Karula gave us a lot more insight into her mothering of cubs than what Tandi does. Tandi tends to be a lot more shy, a lot more secretive when she's got cubs, but she was an incredible leopard. And the fact that we had the ability to follow two little leopard cubs from pretty much the day they were born to the point now where Hosana, obviously Shongile, we don't know what happened to her. We don't know where she is. She could be alive. She might not be. I mean, it's obviously we don't really know. But to the fact that we could follow to Hosana up until very recently into his sort of phase of life as a 3-year-old male was just absolutely insane. It's one of those very special things to have. I mean, leopards, remember, are shy, reclusive animals. They don't particularly want too much attention on their cubs, their dens, and those kind of things. for her to allow that and for us to have been able to witness this was absolutely spectacular. And to be able to see the differences in the cubs now, going back and looking at the footage and seeing how different the cubs are, is quite amazing. And you find it always when you have two cubs like that, one will always be more brazen than the other one. You'll find that there will always be one that will kind of approach, and then the other one will kind of always sort of slink around in the background. And when you've got three, it actually is quite funny. All three tend to be quite fine. It's quite interesting, unless, of course, the mother is very, very skittish. Now, is it Carla, Irene? What's the closer? You're a new viewer, which is great. You've joined us on a very cool day because you're getting to catch up with all the things that we've been kind of seeing over the past. Carla, Irene, there we go. So you're getting to catch up with all of our leopard characters over the years, and you can see them from when they were tiny and as they grow up. So you've joined on a very good day, and I hope that you're going to love joining us on Safari Live more and asking a lot more questions. But what's the closest I've ever been to a leopard? Very close is probably the answer to that. I had Tingana a few days ago, which is one of our big dominant male leopards, and he was probably from, I mean, if I had put my arm out the side of the car, I would have been able to touch him on the head. So it gives you an idea of how close they sometimes walk past the vehicles when they're on these kind of patrols. Anyway, talking about characters, this is not one of our leopard characters, but, well, is a firm favorite, particularly for Mr. James Henry, and it seems as though Taylor has managed to catch up with him and his girlfriend.
Well, yes, we have got Snorkel Sarah and Scuba Steve doing their usual thing here at Buffelshoek Dam, which is not much at all. Sorry, I can just hear somebody else coming through on the radio. So they're not going to be really jumping for joy or running out of the water. Maybe we'll be lucky and we'll see one of them do a big yawn for us. Otherwise, they're just taking it easy. And hippos can hold their breath for a very long time. But that's not all that's at the dam today. We've actually got quite a few visitors in the right-hand corner, in the eastern corner where the storm is coming from. We have got the Singleton. Harold the heron has joined us this afternoon. He's out doing a bit of sunbathing. As you can see, why not take advantage? I also might take my shoes and socks off and get rid of my sock tan. And then, walking off just to the right, we have got the lovely Egyptian geese pair. We've got Gerard and Geraldine goose. And then there's also Larry and Lucy the lapwings. They've made it here this afternoon too. So as you can see, all the regulars have joined us for the Safari Lives. Oh, apparently Jamie has named all the Egyptian geese family. That's impressive. Wonderful. I wonder if there's an identification kit for them. I'll have to get on that. My apologies. I'm not sure which couple this is, but they don't seem to have any little ones, I'm afraid. So they probably haven't survived. Craig, look at that rainbow. Wowzers. How's that for a scene? That is absolutely amazing. Now, literally for the last couple of minutes, we have been staring at the same scene over and over, and we have had no rainbow. But now there is a rainbow. Isn't that awesome? Beautiful, right? And it's getting prettier and prettier. Oh, wow. That just means that storm is getting closer and closer as well. Hey, Craig. How exciting. And unfortunately, this is not like the Maasai Mara where you can just drive around storms, but Craig and I will be doing our absolute best today. That is my promise to you all. But look, there's some action in the water. Wow. One of the hippopotamuses just stirred the water. I think it was actually Steve. He did some weird thing with his head and actually his entire body. Perhaps he was trying to show Snorkel Sarah that these late-night salsa dancing lessons that he's been going to are finally paying off. She's gone down under the water to have a look. Not sure she'd see much with it being so murky. But I think a lot of it does happen where we can't see. There they are. They're back up again. I'd love to see the size difference between these two, because Snorkel Sarah, she, even just by the size of her head, it's like completely dwarfed by Scuba Steve's head. I don't think Scuba Steve is a small hippo either. He looks fairly large. Well, if he can have the whole of Buffelshoek to himself, he must be pretty tough and pretty good at chasing away the younger bulls or any contenders, really. because it's a nice place here, sheltered from the wind. Got some nice, sort of areas you could sunbathe on a cold winter's day. You've obviously got nice neighbours, talking about the variety of birds that live here. And then, well, look at the view with a rainbow. The only issue that I would see with living at Buffelshoek Dam is the red-billed buffalo weavers that live in the Balanites tree just below the rainbow. Although some might argue that they have the best view. But they make a lot of noise. They're the partiers, although it's very quiet today. Perhaps it was a hectic weekend. Maybe they had some cousins around from down south. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean. Oh, look, Craig! No, Sarah! Come back! Yay! She goes, I feel pretty. And then she didn't finish the song. What do you say? Scuba Steve, you look lovely, my dear. Every day, you look beautiful. I don't know what voices James does for these hippos, and it's not as funny when I do it, so I'm not going to do it anymore. I really enjoy it. There was one thing when I was feeling down, I would go and watch James do the voices for Snorkel, Sarah, and Scuba Steve. Ah, right. Well, these hippos, they seem to be waking up, which is quite nice. Now, Tristan is the biggest sleeper I know, so some might argue that he'd give the leopards a run for their money.
Indeed, Taylor. Nap time is the best time. I'm trying to figure out whether it's comfortable to be a leopard. The answer is no. Well, certainly not for a man, anyway. Very uncomfortable. But I would imagine that this would be a tree that Hosanna and Shungile and Colomba and Not Barbara and all of those cubs would eventually start to use and start to play in. They'll start to kind of explore trees like this and utilize them as vantage points. So from here, it's already amazing, just this short little distance up off the ground, how much more I can see when I stand up here. If I kind of am down in the grass is quite long now in places, and difficult to kind of see things. But as soon as I'm up on this, I can see quite far around, and so it's a perfect kind of vantage point for a young leopard. Now, I don't have the grace and poise of many leopards that are out here, and so my ability to climb, jump and utilize trees is not very good at all. And well, leopards actually, they don't start out as individuals that are very good at climbing at all. Most leopard cubs, when they are still in their den sites at sort of 3 months old, they are not going to be able to climb much at all. Once 3 months gets around, then they start to be able to climb and move. I feel like a leopard cub going down a tree into a den site. Gendre, don't groom me. No, Gendre, stay away. So, Gendre, I am very agile. Thank you, I know. Thank you. Very agile, I agree. So basically, and what I was going to show you next actually is pretty much along those lines, is how a leopard cub starts to experiment and start to learn and start to move around. And there was none more adventurous than Hosanna himself. And so basically, Hosanna first was one that would always enjoy kind of cuddling up to mom. He is a mama's boy, and that's pretty typical of most male leopards. They love to spend time with their moms. And they will kind of go and they'll get good grooming sessions, and you can see that he's absolutely going to love the fact that he's getting all the ticks taken off him. And when he gets his tummy kind of tickled, it's not as comfortable, but he'll still let mom do it. And you can actually see the size of his paws already. If we just stop there, how his paws are developing and getting massive, comparatively speaking, towards kind of Karula's face. If you see her sort of face, and if you think he's only like 3 months old, there's a massive little paws already. It's amazing to kind of see how big those are and how quickly they develop. And you can see he's kind of really bonding, and this is normally over a kill. If you actually look just on where his little kind of mouth is, there's a little kind of bit of blood on his mouth and his leg that she's busy grooming off. So important to show the cubs that they need to maintain their coats and maintain the fact that they need to be clean. In fact, when you go in a little bit closer, you'll actually see that bit of blood on his paw. So this would have been at a carcass probably that he would have been able to kind of feed off and learning how to eat meat. So this would have probably be one of the first times that he had gone towards a little carcass. But isn't he just the cutest thing? Oh, can't wait until we get leopard cubs again here more regularly. It'll be absolutely amazing. Now you'll see here he goes and he starts to learn how to explore. So he starts to go towards kind of trees, and that's generally what they will do, is that they will kind of come out, they'll move around, go to mom, get groomed, get looked after, and then it's now time to really explore the outside world. And they're going to go to trees, and they're going to go behind thickets, and they're going to go running around, and that's going to be how they start to learn. Ultimately, all those games that they'll play, and all the times that they go and interact with mom, even such times where he's kind of swatting her off like that while she's grooming him, while it looks like it's a loving thing, and it is, he's also kind of using his back legs and his front legs, and if he was ever attacked by another leopard, those are going to be the ways that he's going to defend himself. And so that sort of instinct starts to kick in, and that muscle memory and the ability to start using those things starts to work. So, I mean, we can go back and just kind of have a little look at that last little bit where he does use his back legs. Let's just try and find it now. But there we go. So you'll find that he'll kind of utilize them and push them back as much as possible. I think it went a bit far. Whoopsie. A little bit further back, I think. Sorry, guys. But you kind of see the point in how he tries to sort of defend himself from mom's violent, loving attack that she gives him when she kind of tries to kind of groom and look after his little tummy. So very, very kind of cool to see. And at the end of the day, you know, leopard cubs, while they are very adventurous, they often get kind of ticks and those kind of things, so they need to be groomed quite regularly. Nikita, the main and most deadly sickness that cubs tend to get? I'm not sure, actually. It's an interesting question, because many of the wild animals out here are quite resilient to most things. I would imagine that rabies or distemper... I mean, rabies would probably be one of the most dangerous to a leopard mother. I'm not sure, actually. Not many leopards die of just a sickness. In fact, the most leopard cubs that die are through male leopards. That's their number one threat, particularly here in the Sabi Sands. So the studies that have shown has been infanticide is pretty much the biggest sort of, what would you call it, culprit for leopard cub death, followed by then hyenas and lions, pythons, martial eagles, those kind of things. So sickness doesn't really seem to account for very many. And in fact, when I read the report on all of the sort of deaths of leopard cubs that they had studied, there wasn't any that even, I don't think there was one mention of any sort of disease that any of them got, you know, because they're so small and they're not really roaming around. They're not attacking any rabid animals. They're not generally kind of venturing out into community lands where they can pick up anything, and they certainly are not eating really much meat. So unless mom is doing that and in some way kind of brings an infected carcass back to them when they get old enough like this, where they start to be taken to carcasses, or not bring it back to them, but when they get taken to carcasses, they don't really suffer from too many sicknesses or disease. I've seen a few leopard cubs unfortunately die from flooding. That's one thing that does happen from time to time. You'll find that they kind of get washed out, especially if they're in that first kind of phase that we saw Hosanna and Shangila, that's when they were tiny. If there's a flood, then they sometimes can drown in that. Linda, do they get mange? Yes, well, if the mother has mange, they certainly will contract it. But obviously it's always very dangerous in cubs. So we know with the Styx pride and the Nkumas, when the cubs are very small, that's when mange really can be at its most lethal for cubs. And so yes, they can most definitely get mange. In fact, if you go back to the 2017 August or September, October, somewhere there, it was just at the end of the dry season in 2017, and you try and find this, there was a few sightings of Hosanna at Twin Dams. And go look at him and go see how he was starting to get mange around the backs of his ears, on his neck area, and he was itching a lot at that time. You could see him constantly scratching, but then it kind of started to rain and he was fine, and it went away quite quickly. He doesn't have it anymore. So, well, I mean, mange is always a part of any of these animals, but it's just under control. So yes, it's very, very, very definitely can happen to leopards. But the thing is that you must remember with mange is it's caught by lying in close proximity to one another. So if you've got, let's say, a male lion and a female lions, and they're all right next to each other, and the cubs are going from one to another, and so they're all kind of going to be lying right close together. That's how that mange mite is going to spread through that grouping. Whereas leopard cubs, really it's only mom, and mom is not really in contact with any other leopards unless she's mating. So it would have to be a 3-month period that she would have to suffer from mange to then pass it on to those little ones. So it doesn't really happen nearly as much as what you see within lions and more sociable animals like jackals. Anyway, talking about lions, Sydney is out and about, and seems as though his technical gremlins have been sorted out, and he's on the search for the Nkuhumas.
I am looking for the Nkuhumas here in the area. Very good looking and healthy pride of lions. And as I am looking for them here, I just want to take you back to what has been happening with this Nkuhuma during the course of the week.
The Nkuhuma lions looked out as the morning sun brightened the grassy landscape. With another hot summer day ahead, they slowly sank down into the grass and enjoyed the much-needed shade. The oldest lioness kept watch while grooming herself, being sure to keep her wounded side elevated and fly free, while the others slipped into a mid-morning slumber.
The Nkuhumas, they were so very much looking tired and sleeping during the day. Maybe it's because a lot of them has been spotted. The females are seen doing some mating, and now maybe they are experiencing some of the development of a pregnancy stage. That is why now a lot are just lying down flat and enjoying the deep sleep. This reminds me of while I was still very young. By the classroom, if we are just keep sleeping and slumbering, our principal used to say, no, I'm going to have to call the doctors to come and check. Maybe some of you are pregnant here. So maybe that is why the Nkuhumas are sleeping a lot these days, because the female has been mating. So Mrs. Lapwing, I didn't copy nicely your lovely comment. I need a cut, yes. So here at the moment, you can see where I am in front. The grass is so very much thick at the moment. Imagine if the Nkuhumas are lying down here flat, it won't be easy for me to see them. So here we are, it means it rained a lot. This part of the reserve received good rains. That is why the grass are so excited, which is now making it difficult for me to find the Nkuhumas. But let's hope for the best. I haven't picked up any fresh tracks on these Nkuhumas, but this area is where they were last spotted. So maybe this is because it rained this morning. The rain maybe killed the tracks. The rain just killed the tracks. No fresh tracks anymore on the ground. So they must be enjoying their sleep now because it's overcast. They don't have to worry about the shade like we saw earlier. So I am right in the middle of the section which is under Hukumuri. So this is the part where Hukumuri roams around a lot. So maybe we might be lucky with him because he was also spotted in the very same area this morning. Maybe we'll be lucky here when looking for the Nkuhumas and see Hukumuri. So I don't think Hukumuri has already met at Colomba, as I was very lucky a few days ago with Colomba. So I can't wait to see their interaction when they meet. There's quite a lot of wind here where we are driving at the moment. So now let's go back to the Maasai Mara where Lauren is waiting.
Yes, you can believe it. Yes. Rub your eyes a few times more. You are back with us here in the Maasai Mara, and we are extremely happy about it. Now, my name is, of course, Lauren, and on camera I have Manu, and we have had just one of the most incredible, long, exhausting, but amazing afternoons ever. We have been following the cheetah that we had this morning, the lastminutecheetah.com that you all managed to see. Move over last minute lions, it's last minute cheetahs. And we have been with her all afternoon. And of course, as soon as you guys reach us, she is indeed walking off. But we are going to catch up with her, do not worry. Now, just a little update. I actually thought it was a male this morning from far away due to the sheer size of her. She is a female and she's very large, I feel, for a cheetah. Her name is Busara, and she is actually the daughter of Amani. She is 3 years old, and this is the first time ever that she's ever been spotted in the triangle. So we let the cheetah research people know, and it's the first time she's been spotted in the triangle. She's normally on the Serengeti side of the border. So it's great news from our side, and we just want to catch up with her again. Now, we watched her miss 3 potential hunts. So she went for a Thompson's gazelle. No, it was a fail. She almost went for a juvenile water buck, fail, and she was trying for some impala, fail. So as we looked a little bit closer at her, she's walking slightly funny, not limping, but stiffly, if that makes sense. And we actually see a small injury, a small red hole on her left hip. So we're a bit worried about her. 1, she's very far from where she normally is. 2, she's hungry and she's missed 3 potential opportunities. But of course, cheetahs do not always just hunt during the day, so she could potentially be waiting till night time as well. So Busara is absolutely stunning. We actually parked our vehicle a little bit ahead of her, and she came right up to the vehicle and lay down in the shadow of the vehicle. So it's just been an incredible day, and what we're doing right now is just catching up with her. It is game drive time and a lot of vehicles descended. So the rangers are just rerouting us. So bear with us, we still have time. We are going to catch up with her. Mohammed is saying, yay, another cheetah character, and yay, I'm so happy about this. I'm fast becoming the cheetah lady here, slowly becoming obsessed with them. And I've seen one almost every day now, so I'm feeling rather lucky. Now, I just want to check exactly which way we're going here. So while we catch up with Busara, which is exactly what we're going to do, I'm going to take you from the cheetah whisperer down to the leopard whisperer in the tent.
Well, I'm not sure about that. I mean, that's something that obviously people call me, but as we all know how I feel about it. I just like looking for leopards, and so sometimes we find them, sometimes we don't. Actually spend a lot of time not finding them, to be honest. But anyway, I do love spending time with leopards, and I must be honest, in Mara I do enjoy spending time with the cheetahs too. They're an amazing creature. We don't see them much here, and watching them move around that area is just absolutely unbelievable. So I can understand why Lauren is kind of fixated with them. I will say one thing though. I just now was listening to, because in here we can hear the drive as well, which is quite nice because you can listen to what's going on. And I heard Sydney was saying that he can't wait for Hukumuri and Colomba to meet, and I think I'm on the opposite side of that fence because I don't want them to meet anytime soon. I think we can all wait quite some time, and it's fine in a few years when they're able to mate with one another, but not now because obviously she's still too little, and I'm pretty sure that he wouldn't be very friendly to her. I think she'd be in a lot of trouble actually if he found her, so let's rather keep that meeting apart for a while and when she gets a little bit older. But anyway, we're going to move away from Shongile and Hosana for a little bit just to show you the differences that each kind of leopard cub has, and we're going to branch off onto a different lineage now. Not a hugely different lineage, but it's one of Karula's daughters, is Shadow, and her kind of most recent offspring that she had before she disappeared, which was not Barbara. And essentially her kind of luck as a mother was very different to that of Thandi and Karula. Thandi and Karula were very kind of have an incredible and immaculate kind of record when it comes to cubs. Now I'm just going to stop it there. You can already see the difference in this cub's behavior to what you were seeing from Shongile and Hosana. Rather than just kind of trusting mom and creeping around and sort of looking at us, and on Hosana being very brazen, this cub was nervous. It was running, and that's due to probably the fact that of how Shadow was as a mom. She was very different to Karula in that it was actually quite difficult to find Shadow when she had cubs. She would be a lot easier to find, I found, outside of the time she had cubs, for the most part. When she had cubs, sometimes she became really secretive and shy, and used to get only kind of very infrequent glimpses of that little one. And so that's why Not Barbara probably was a lot more kind of scared and would run ahead of mom. And you can see what's in this sort of frame that we've stopped it at, how Shadow is having to kind of constantly look up in front of her to make sure that this little one where it's running is nice and safe, and that it's not kind of dangerous where she is. And you'll see that if we roll it on, she kind of has to scan around and look and wait and then kind of call, and then Not Barbara kind of appears out there. So you can see she's a little bit more nervous. Even though she's older at this stage, she's much bigger than what we saw from Shongile when Shongile was a bit nervous. But if we stop it there, isn't she also just so beautiful? And you would find that Shadow would be kind of a little bit more circumspect. And there's two reasons also why Shadow is like this. Not only because Not Barbara was bounding away from her a lot, but the other reason is that Shadow, unlike Karula, where Karula was, and even Thandi with Colomba, they were having their cub in the center point of their traverse, or their territory, let's call it. Traverse is what we would say for us, but for their territory. Whereas Shadow, when she would bring Not Barbara here, this would be on the edges. This is on her eastern boundary for Shadow's territory. And so a little bit more nervous. Is mom around? Is Thandi around? What's going on here? What males are around? So she'll be a little bit more circumspect. And you would have seen that with Thandi when she started moving Colomba as much as she did when Hukumuri first arrived here. Remember that Thandi used to den right in the center of Djuma, and she used to move around very close to Quarantine, Mulwati, and then Hukumuri arrived and she picked Colomba up and off they went. And they went all the way towards sort of Torchwood side. And she would have been a lot more nervous, and we had very much less sightings of Thandi and Colomba. Fewer, should I say, sightings of those two when they moved that way. Even though a lot of the time they were on our side, she just hid Colomba a lot better than when she was kind of in the central part of the reserve. But anyway, you'll find that Shadow she was alert and she would be looking around. And, I really feel sorry for Shadow in many respects. A lot of people have often asked the question about her as a mother, and was it, why was her success rate so much less? Oh, she is so sweet, this little Not Barbara. I'm so sad that she didn't make it. She was almost there as well. It's a pity that we don't know what happened to her, and I really wish she had survived, because she was a beautiful little female. I can see her kind of skulking through the grasses there. But, Shadow, unfortunately, she wasn't a bad mother. She just was caught in a really bad territory. And so she had a number of males always overlapping in her territory, which made life for her really tricky. She constantly had to try and kind of balance her areas and make sure that, Anderson didn't kill the cubs, Tingana, Mafufinyan, they were all fringes. She never really had a male that secured her entire area by herself, like Karula has and Thandi has. And so she had to constantly kind of deal with this fringe sort of situation. And I remember seeing Shadow moving massive distances. The one day I found her mating with Anderson all the way in front of Simbambili. And then the next day she had left Anderson and she was mating with Tingana all the way on Triple M here. So she had kind of crossed the whole western sector to be able to kind of mate with the two males. And so she had a lot more work to do in many respects than maybe what Karula and Thandi have had to do in their lifespan. So it was a little bit more tricky for her. But, essentially in terms of den sites, though, what are available to her, she still had great den sites. There's a lot of really nice den sites in the Arethusa area, really nice drainage lines, good places to hide. So I think it was just more the pressure of a lot of males. Painted Wolf, did she cover less territory? No, not really. So she had a territory that basically extended from the kind of Elephant Plains Arethusa cut line was really where she sort of separated with Salahesh. It ebbed and flowed a little bit towards the Marakeng drainage, and then she would come a lot more to the west. And obviously we know that she used to come towards sort of Shabamu Road and then this western sector towards the sort of end when Karula sort of disappeared. Before Karula disappeared, Triple M was really the divide between the two of them. She very seldom used to venture in here, unless it was when she was with Sindile, when she used to hang around that right in that southwestern corner. She used to come in there a little bit. But her territory was no smaller than what Thandi's or anybody else's was. She still had a fairly decent-sized territory. It's just that where she was, it just unfortunately fell where males historically throughout her life established a boundary, and it could be due to the fact that Triple M was such a big road. It's an easy road for these males to mark and to make a significant scent barrier. But if we go way back, we had Jordan. That was his boundary, was Triple M. He used to protect that from Mafufanyana, and Mafufanyana used to come down Triple M and south into Hofmans and then go that way. Then Mvula and Tingana, then Tingana and Anderson. So she was always just on that cusp and on that fringe, and these males kind of marauding on both sides meant she lost a lot. And then on top of that, she's in an area with a high density of hyenas. That EP clan, she's kind of sandwiched between EP and Juma clan, so wherever she goes she's got hyena competition, which makes life a little bit more tricky. So I think she was just a victim of circumstance in many respects. I don't think she was a bad mother at all. I think in fact she really tried hard, and Not Barbara was proof of that. When things settled for her and she was able to move into a male's territory that he encompassed, she did perfectly fine until, of course, Hukamuri arrived, and then that upset the apple cart, and we don't know really where she went from there. So it just kind of shows you how males are actually vitally important for the upbringing of these little cubs. Anyway, little Not Barbara, who was super playful, and like I say, very sad that she's gone missing, much like Shangila. It's always sad when you watch these little videos. They hopefully will turn up one day if you're going to be the eternal optimist. Anyway, Pat is also out and about. He's going to be doing flick-flacks, I would imagine, to be on camera and out of the gremlins, and he's managed to find some lions.
Yes, cats everywhere today, and we are very happy to have the Olololo Pride joining us right now, who are just starting to stir about. My name is Patrick, and joining me behind the lens today is James. We are coming to you live from the Maasai Mara Game Reserve here in Kenya. Now, these Olololos just started to get up as we sort of came over here. As we kind of just moved around and started to actually have a proper look at them, and they were all making these weird grumbling sounds and all came together to show a lot of affection to one another. So perhaps they're communicating that they're ready to get up for the night, although they have gone flat again. But it was a very strange sighting. They all just made this big ball and started rubbing their heads around each other whilst making a real kind of low grumbling sound. So what actually happened, I'm not sure, but things seem to have settled down. Now, I did count 7 of them. But there may be more because it is flat. Anyway, it's been good catching up with all the prides over the last week, one of them being the Salt Lick Pride. Let's go take a look at them. The Salt Lick Pride name originates from the territory's rich source of salt nutrients, and the pride looked well nourished as they basked in the morning sun. The young male is starting to develop his mane, a promising sign of his journey to adulthood. Kapuli visited the pride and they calmly rested together in silence. The young male made use of a nearby tree for a good stretch, as the pride prepared to relocate their napping spot for some much needed shade. Well, I was just kind of thinking in my head whilst that clip was playing just how many of the prides I've actually seen in the last week here in the Mara, and it's quite a good number. I've seen obviously right now with the Ulululus, spent some time with the Sausage Tree Pride. Earlier on in the week I had the Paradise Pride, and then about 6 days ago I was with the Marsh Pride, and so that's all of them so far, but it's been really good to see. The Salt Lick Pride as well, of course, the one we just saw. So that's 5 prides in the last week that I have seen, so I'm very happy to have all of this lion action, despite the sausages giving me a bit of a runaround for a while there. Now, I have been sticking with these guys in the hopes that they may get up and hunt later. As I said, they were quite flat, so I haven't quite seen their bellies to see how full they actually are. But there was a couple of buffalo in the area, not much other prey in the area. Lauren wants to know whether I can see any dominant males amongst this pride. No, I can't. They all seem to be the sub-adults from what I can see right now, that is. But I saw about 3 sub-adult males right now. So they haven't left the pride yet and they haven't gone out on their own. So they haven't really got that chance to be the dominant male or to compare themselves with other males. But there is definitely one in this pride that does look a lot bigger than the other one, and its mane is starting to develop really well. Unfortunately, it's just in the back of where we are right now, so we can't exactly see it. This, of course, being a female here. Must be hard in the Ulululu pride, being one of the few females. There are a lot of males in this pride at the moment. And they were there when I was here last in November as well. I think there was about 3 or 4 males last time I was here. They all seem to be coming along finally. As for the cubs that were born on my birthday, January the 10th was... Well, no, they weren't born on my birthday, sorry. The first time they were sighted was on my birthday. But I cannot see them here at the moment, unfortunately, but I will stick around, let you know anything that happens from here on out, and in the meantime, let's go to Taylor, who seems to be at the hyena den right now. I hope she has some hyenas.
We are here, we are back, and if I'm not mistaken, that's Ribbon, who we saw with the elephants a little bit earlier, and looks like she's got a bit of a smidgen of blood on the side of her face, so I wonder what she had found, what she's been eating. Otherwise she's fairly clean. But this is awesome to see her. Hopefully it'll be a rewarding sight. But the hyena den has been very, very busy, as you can imagine, and it was particularly busy this week. Those elephants we saw earlier, they could be on their way, and we might have something similar that happened a few days ago. With the new additions to the Djuma clan, meal times can often turn into quite the event. As the matriarch's cub, Plonk will rarely have to worry about anything, especially when Corky's keeping a close eye on the young chances of the clan. However, with her back turned, Plonk is left to an onslaught of hungry cousins. Not wanting to be left out of the mid-meal tug-of-war, June's cubs seem keen to prove themselves around the slightly older clan members. While most of the hyena cubs continue to play, one of the cubs' curiosity got the better of him, investigating a rather large and uninvited guest. A male elephant in must is not the ideal visitor, as he trumpeted at his host before moving on to snack on some of the other flora, leaving the cubs to tiptoe around for the remainder of the morning. Welcome back, everybody. We're still here at the den, and hopefully I am correct in saying that this is Ribbon. Hashtag Safari Live if I'm wrong. Let me know, tell me. I'm sorry. But how exciting was that, though, to have the elephant bull come marching through? I'm sure maybe he was curious by the smell, because Tristan was mentioning it the other day. This den is is particularly stinky at the moment. But very, very, very likely that we could have a similar situation. That breeding herd of elephants we saw right at the beginning of the show, the same herd that this hyena passed through, they're on their way in this direction. Craig and I bumped into them just 100 meters to the south of us, and they could well be coming this way. So that might cause a bit of disturbance, especially if all the little cubs come out. Is it Plonk? Hello? I don't think I've ever met... I think that's Plonk. Please excuse me. I haven't met half of these hyenas other than Ribbon and her 2 youngsters. I've seen June's 2 youngsters, and those are the only young cubs that I've actually seen with my own 2 eyes. But this hyena is quite big, and I wonder if it is the matriarch's cub, who is Corky. And we were very, very worried a little while ago about Plonk, because he'd gone on a bit of a run around and disappeared for a couple of hours. Very interesting. But looking down into the burrow where Ribbon is, and I think Ribbon is trying to encourage her little ones to come out. Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mrs. Anna and Crystal, for confirming that that is indeed the wonderful Ribbon. Right, we're going to wait, and hopefully the hyenas will all start to poke their heads out now. Off we go to Tristan with some more spots.
Indeed, we are talking about spots, and as we know, it's something that I like talking about a lot and can talk about for probably a good portion of my time at Wild Earth. I think I've spoken about spots and in general what they get up to. But anyway, we kind of trying to sort of go through all the different characters that we've had as little cubs, and wind. That was almost a fail. I almost fell over. That almost did not end well. That would have been a torn hamstring or groin or something like that, Jandre. It wouldn't have been very pleasant at all, but thank goodness that didn't happen. Anyway, one animal that doesn't have to worry about torn hamstrings and things like that is little leopard cubs, because they're a lot more flexible. Yes, it would have been a wonderful unscheduled broadcast. I've done enough falling. I don't need to do any more, thank you. Taylor and I certainly have held the fort when it's come to falling live on Safari Live. I think it's time for some others to start producing the magic. Anyway, we have obviously one of the leopards that is probably very close to a lot of our older viewers who've been watching for many years, and that's little Sandile, and he was a really, really, really cute little leopard. Beautiful, beautiful eyes. You can see he was kind of wide-eyed with us, very safe next to Mom, and he loved having Mom around. I thoroughly enjoyed kind of going, because I went back and watched a lot of stuff on him just to kind of learn a bit more about him. I didn't see him at this age. I only saw him much later. I was actually out of the country when he was born and kind of spent some time out of the country, and then came back to Simambili, and he was already kind of spending a lot of time without Shadow. But you can see, super curious little male. He was really relaxed and beautiful little one. But you can see how he always stuck close to Mom. And it's a trait that you'll see a lot with the males. So you saw Not Barbara and Shongile, both of them happy to kind of move around and away from the mother, whereas the boys typically are always quite close to Mom, kind of try and stay uptight near them, just to make sure that they are able to kind of stay nice and sort of safe. They know that Mom is the safety blanket. But for those of you who are not sort of familiar with who Sandile was, so he was a son of Shadow, her only surviving offspring that she had, that we know of. Obviously not Barbara. There's a very remote possibility that she is alive, but I am almost 99% sure that she's not. But anyway, Sandile got infamous in many respects because of his interaction that he had with a dog. So basically, he managed to grab a dog and take it up into a tree where he was in the process of trying to kill this dog. He didn't actually kill it in the end. It kind of, when in the process of them trying to chase him off the dog, because obviously dogs have rabies, a lot of these feral dogs that get in, and a lot of people outside in the communities unfortunately don't have access to very good veterinary care, and so some of the animals do pick up rabies. And one of the big symptoms of rabies is an animal becomes completely disorientated. It doesn't know where it is, and so instead of going home, it starts to wander, and it starts to look for water, and it starts to look for food, and it just kind of gets lost, and it ends up then they sometimes get into the reserves. Anyway, so he grabbed this dog, put it up in the tree, and was in the process of killing it, and he was then chased away off this carcass. But the problem was that he had sunk his fangs into this particular animal, and the animal tested positive when they eventually found the dog and put it down. It eventually tested positive for rabies, and so he was treated for rabies, which meant that he actually had to be captured and taken off-site. So he was moved from the Sabi Sands to a care facility where he was treated for the rabies, and then he was brought back here. And he had a collar on for a while to monitor his movements, and it was really interesting to watch that process take place, because what had happened in the time that he had been taken away and had basically been treated, so Shadow had another cub. All right, so she had mated, had another set of cubs, and Sindile was brought back and he was dropped off here, and he immediately sought out Shadow. He looked for her and he found her with this little cub, and she was very aggressive, as you can imagine. In her mind, probably that cub was dead because she didn't see him anymore. She couldn't find any scent of him, and she probably thought he was dead, and all of a sudden he came back, and she must have thought, this is now a threat to my new offspring. And so even though she so kind of looked after that little cub and raised him and suckled him and groomed him and fed him, when that time came and she had her new cubs, that bond is severed completely, and that happens with all leopards and their offspring. And so she'll find that she was very aggressive to him, and that obviously must have been quite a confusing time for him, because he doesn't know any better. He was trying to seek sort of sanctity with mom, and she was a bit aggressive, and then he started to wonder. And with the collar on, we started to see just how much a male leopard can distribute. We often think that male leopards are not going to go far, they're going to just move close, but he would start to go, and he would go all the way down to the Sabi River. So Sabi, Lion Sands saw him, and then he would even go into Kruger and do a big loop into Kruger, then come back through Mala, and then come back towards Djuma. And he did this a few times, and he was seen once or twice, and then the collar was removed. But the problem with all of this is the darting of him and the treating of him and all of those kind of things led to him having a complete distrust in vehicles. So he became very shy and very skittish from being one of the most relaxed cats. I remember having a sighting of him on Gari Main, on Triple M, and there was lots of cars. It was at a time when there were delivery trucks coming past, and he just kind of sat there and just posed beautifully on a tree and just watched the world go by, as he would often do on Triple M, and wasn't any way flustered. And he came back from all of this, and he really didn't want anything to do with people, and I can understand. I mean, obviously it must have been a very confusing time for a leopard to be kind of moved and these kind of things, and so he started to roam a lot more, and then the collar was taken off, and he was seen once on Elephant Plains, and as far as I know, that was the last confirmed sighting with a photograph of him, was on Elephant Plains, and then from there, who knows. But given his propensity to move before the collar came off, he could be anywhere. I mean, he was moving massive distances, and if you look at Hukamuri, it gives you an idea to how far these guys can move. Debbie, do moms teach cubs how to defend themselves? No, not really. Cubs will learn a little bit from watching mom. Remember that a lot of the time they're going to be taken to kills. So from sort of 3 months old, they're being taken to meat. And when they start getting taken to meat, there's going to be a lot of times that mom's going to have interaction with things like hyenas, maybe male leopard. So those cubs will watch mom's interactions, and they will definitely learn from that. But a lot of what a leopard does is instinctual. So hunting, defending itself, those kind of things are instincts that a leopard has. And yes, they might see their mother do it once or twice, but it more comes from an instinct point of view. They know how to hunt, they know how to defend themselves. And there will be a lot of games, particularly for those that are siblings. So if there's a litter where there's more than one, then they play so much that a lot of the skills to fight and to do all those kind of things is practiced and honed during that period. Those that don't have siblings, while they still learn, they have to practice on other things, and we'll get to that just now. We do have a clip of what I'm going to say now in terms of they have to practice on other things. So trees and branches and flowers and those kind of things start to become tools to be able to learn how to fight and to play and to tackle and to bring things down. So it's vitally important that they almost teach themselves, but there's that instinct even from very, very, very young. I mean, we saw it with Hosana, Shongile, with Tamba, Colomba. When they're small, they still play with branches, they tackle them, they grab mom's tail, they bite it. So these are all things that they're going to learn as they go along. Right, there's some squirrels that are busy shouting, so I'm going to go investigate. Wouldn't it be amazing if Hosanna rocked up now? That would be quite something. But while I do that, I'm going to send you to somebody I've forgotten who, and that's because I'm getting old and grey, and these things happen. So off you go to whoever it is, but I'm sure it will be entertaining.
Still here with the olololos, and they are still quite flat, although they have been stirring a little bit lately. So they're just starting to wake up a bit. We have about 7 here, I counted, and this lioness sitting very proudly. She's been looking off quite intently into the distance at something. I'm not sure exactly what. I haven't been able to see. Maybe it's nothing at all. But there has been something that seems to have gotten her attention. But over the other side, in front of us, we have some perfect prey items for such a big pride. Sorry, my head's in the way there. And that is some buffalo. So these are the ones I was talking about before. As we were coming down, when we first saw the pride, they were kind of wallowing in the mud. And that was what prompted me to kind of stay with them, just in case they do decide to go out tonight. I did get a look at their stomachs as they were moving around a bit before, and they don't look very full at all. And everyone's saying that the olololos are known for buffalo hunting, and yes, they are very good at taking down a big buffalo because of all of those numbers. There is about 16 of them, plus the cubs that they've had at the moment. So it is one of the bigger prides that we get here in the Maasai Mara, but obviously quite successful at what they do. There's also a lot of young males, which is surprising to see how successful they are, because as we all know, young males aren't exactly the best of hunters. But they seem to be going along just fine. Now, Manu seems to think that they have stashed some cubs somewhere in this area as well. So it will be interesting to see what... Oh, did we hear that? There was just a little bit of a go away there, a bit of a warning. Anyway, let's share the cat love around and go to Lauren, who is about 10-15 kilometres northeast of where I am right now.
So our search for Busara didn't go very well, I'm afraid. We were told to go on a diversion by the rangers, and after we did the diversion, she seems to have disappeared somewhere along this road, so we're going to do our last check for her. We've been with her since about 8 o'clock this morning. Anyway, let's not go down that very frustrated line. I'll hold all my frustrations inside. I obviously had the most magical sighting this week with the North Clan, and of course they had a huge surprise for us. It was unexpected, so let's go and check it out.
After a few weeks, the cubs' black coats will start to lighten, and they will begin to get spots, making them blend in with the rest of the clan. But for now, the cubs are still learning to explore and navigate this new world outside of their den.
Wasn't that just magical? You know how much I love hyenas. You all know I'm a bit of a hyena obsessive, but that was just the most magical morning. We really didn't expect there to be hidden surprises in the den. The North Clan have so many cubs right now. It's unbelievable. We spent a little bit of time there this morning hoping that we could go live, and of course, you know, we couldn't, and we didn't see the cubs. So the mothers were calling them, but they didn't come out the den. Little bit concerned, but I will be there tomorrow just to check up that all is okay. So they are brand new cubs and welcome to the world. So of course they haven't been sexed yet or named. So as soon as we get the updates from the researchers, we will indeed update you as always. So we're just doing our last check for Busara as well, but I believe Miss Taylor also found new cubs this week, so let's go down to her.
indeed, Lauren. I'm with the Djuma clan, and we're just sitting here patiently. We've also repositioned now, because Ribbon was shuffling about inside the den, and you could hear her moaning. Obviously, something's going on inside there, whether it's June's cubs that are trying to suckle on the sly from Ribbon, or if it is her two young cubs who are not really cooperating. They could potentially be giving her a bit of trouble, but they are so sweet, and we were really, really lucky last week. Well, not even last week, I lie, I talk nonsense, just a couple of days ago, to have our first view of them. The Djuma den was slightly more subdued as majority of the clan were out and about for their morning routines. Ribbon, who has one of the newest set of cubs, readied the young ones for breakfast. With parenthood taking its toll, Ribbon appeared too tired to notice an older cub jump in the queue. Aloe sucking is typically only seen with lower-ranking hyenas. This proves that June and her cubs outrank Ribbon. Once she realized that the cub under her paw was not her own, she chased the youngster off. Welcome back again, welcome back. How precious now. It looks like Ribbon might be grooming one of the little cubs, or she's grooming her own paws. It's very difficult to tell, but the way that her head is moving side to side, it seems like she's sort of doing the licking motion. I'm really hoping we get a sneak peek. Well, not a sneak peek, we've had one of those, but another view of these little hyena cubs. They're so precious. They must be about 2 weeks old now, maybe just shy of that, but they're getting braver and braver. I've been lucky, I've seen them twice. It's always been mainly after drive though, so hopefully if we just sit here for long enough, she will let those little ones come out. Linda, you're loving the hyena cubs. I'm so glad. That's fantastic. It is nice. A lot of people... Oh, there we go. A lot of people aren't the fans of hyenas, are they? But how could you not think that that tiny little thing over there was adorable? Oh, look, here it comes. Climb up. Now, I, of course, wish Jamie was in the vehicle with me and walking you through this sighting with these two little ones, because they are her absolute favorite. She must be like a proud mom. And Jamie will forever be the hyena queen, the hyena whisperer, and no one will be able to take that away from her. She's put in so much time and effort in the Mara and here in Djuma. And I'm glad that was Ribbon licking one of her little cubs, so we know that one of them has been cleaned this evening. Yes, come on out. And if you come out into the nice golden light, your fur will be glistening. It's like you have glitter on you. Joy, no, I'm not. I don't think she's too tired to suckle. I think those little ones are suckling. I think she's just getting a little bit annoyed. I think June's cubs are hassling her quite a bit. And I didn't get any confirmation. Was that Plonk? I think it was Plonk. It's quite a big hyena that's maybe around, 5 months old or so. I also don't know when Plonk was born. I know it was last year sometime. Apologies, everyone. And I hope that Corky comes back. I hope that June comes back. I hope that more adults come back and bring their little ones out so that I can actually see them all. A couple of people think it was Plonk, but no 100% confirmations just yet. Well, something that I'm hoping we will be able to see once the adults come back is all the little ones that are filled with energy and have lots of personalities. But so do our leopards, and Tristan's going to tell you all about it.
Be described as cute.
Aww.
Oh, Jean-Ray, did I break your heart? Did you think you were cute? I'm sorry, man. Sorry to burst your bubble, Jean-Ray. But we are talking about cute subjects in the form of our leopard cubs. I mean, there really is not many animals that are cuter. And I agree with Taylor that hyenas are incredibly cute animals when they're young. But then again, most animals are, to be honest. Little young animals typically are quite cute. And even in things like,
anything really. But leopard cubs for me are my absolute favorite. I think they're the cutest of the cute. Now I'm going to be in trouble with Andre because I left the speaker on because I was listening to what Taylor was saying, so we're going to turn that off quickly. Otherwise you're going to have to hear me in, what would it be? Surround sound or echo? Echo, yes, it would be echo because it's a 10-second difference. Anyway, just now we were talking about sort of two cubs and how they play together and how they spend time doing their thing, and single cubs don't have that ability. They don't have the same ability to have a sibling that they can constantly play with even when mom's not around, and so their games are very, very different and they have to occupy themselves a lot of the time. And we have a clip of Tumba, who, as you all know, is my absolute favorite. When I watch this, I just get sad that I don't see him anymore, even though it's really cute and nice to watch, but it's sad that we don't see him in this area, and I hope that he one day does come back. But essentially, we've got Tundi in the tree, so she's busy sitting and taking it very, very easy, and unfortunately for poor Tumba at this stage, he's now lost his sibling. So when Tumba was born, there were two of them, and he's unfortunately lost his sibling, and he is basically sitting very, very bored. And so what he has to do is essentially occupy himself and kind of keep himself from being bored. And so how he does that is that he eventually kind of ends up looking around, and mom is not interested, she's busy sleeping, and so what you'll find is that he's going to kind of stop and he's going to stand up, and now he's going to investigate the tree. So the tree is going to be a game, then the tail becomes a game, and these, you can see how he's pawing at his tail. This is all going to teach him how to deal with carcasses, how to attack things, how to bring things down, even though it's his own tail that he's biting. And look at the size of his ears. Isn't he just the cutest cat? Oh, he is so beautiful. He hadn't grown into anything by then. His paws were just massive, and so was his ears. And so when the tail becomes not a good game anymore, then the stick starts to come out. And so things like this become the best thing that they can use. They'll end up kind of grabbing these, biting them, and often we see, how many times have we seen leopards walking around with sticks in their mouths, dragging them around? It's quite regular to do it. Emma, did you just say that I must put this in my mouth? Is that what you just said, or did you say I must just play with the stick? I don't know what Emma said, but I was a bit... I'm not putting it in my mouth, Chandra. You want to put it in your mouth, Chandra? Okay? I have been playing with the stick. The stick has been my little pointing device. Jandre says that you said that I have to put it in my mouth, so he almost tricked me. I didn't hear you. He almost made me do it and kind of have a little leopard stick. But imagine if you did. Jandre, I'm quite tempted to do it because I would imagine it can't be very comfortable. Roger. Right. Difficult to speak, though. That's for sure. Difficult to speak, but if you watch Tumba, he ends up... not very tasty as well, I must be honest. But Tumba ends up grabbing a piece of bark, and there's a full-on game that he ends up playing with his little piece of bark. He starts like trying to kind of hold it, and he picks it up and bites it. And so these are all vital lessons for a cub on his own. And you can see how he's just going to have to make do with his own time. And learn from himself, and especially with a mother like Tundi, she likes to play, but only for short bursts. She's not a huge player for long periods of time, and so he has to kind of just sit. And he's now like going to glance over to mom and say, "Mom, please come play with me. I really want to play." And eventually she'll kind of come and sort of look at him, and then he realizes no, mom's not going to help, and so instead he's going to start biting his own paws and catching his own paw. I love this little part of the segment where he kind of pulls his own paw towards himself. Isn't that cute? Silly boy. Still got big ears at that stage. Massive ears, and it was amazing to kind of see him when he was like that. I remember James used to call him Bigglesworth. Was that right? Bigglesworth, was it? Yes, it was Bigglesworth, I think is what James used to call him. And James has all these names. He comes up with the most classic names. I always have to laugh when James comes up with these things. But absolutely amazing. Now, talking about crazy things and sightings, it sounds like Sydney has found quite a special one that we don't get to see very often.
Look at what I've got there. I've got a very nice and big black mamba at the moment. This black mamba is looking for something to eat. We have been here for quite a while. And he's not even worried about us here. You can see there is he is right there at the moment. Look at that. You can see he's slowly going deep in there, and it's quite a very nice and long black mamba. Look at that. Can see that part of the tail going in there. Maybe we can still see a little bit from here, as I can see it's right behind those grasses there. So the black mambas can be so very much beautiful. I can see that maybe from here we can still have a sighting, as I can see that he is moving much more towards this direction. We might be lucky and see him still somewhere here. He's somewhere by the opening here. So the black mambas are some of those snakes which are these days going to be used. The venom of the black mamba can be used in order to create or to make the painkillers. So it is something which is called a mambalgin. A mambalgin is one of the proteins which is consisting a venom of a black mamba. So you don't have to go for a snake bite. So talking about the reptiles and good sightings, let's quickly see what we have seen, a surprise during the week.
This week, amongst the dense summer greenery, we have found a few goggly eyes looking back at us. This flap-necked chameleon perched on a branch gave us the perfect opportunity to get a good look at these often elusive creatures. While keeping his eyes on us, we had a fantastic look at him from tip to spiral tail.
That was a great sighting indeed of the chameleon doing some little bit of movement, showing that he's about to move, just trying to promise to move nice and slowly. It was amazing. So the chameleons are one of those animals which can be very much difficult to see, but they are amazing reptiles. So now we were very lucky with one of the large reptiles. So now let's go back to Taylor with the beautiful hyenas.
Welcome back, everybody. We've got another visitor who's decided to pop out of the den. I'm not sure who this little one is. There's no partner in crime, which makes me think. No, I don't actually know. I don't know whose cub it is. He'll have to help me to figure out who's who in the zoo here. And the zoo being a hyena den today. But this is awesome. Ribbon's getting annoyed. I think the little ones want to come out. She is not too keen on letting them come out. Poke your head out again so we can see. At least the two little ones are having a good time fighting over branches. Oh no, you're just being dragged around by your neck. You've got no hope. You're so much smaller. I love that when they play with one another like that. Well, you know, a bit more dominance than anything. Just showing who's the boss. Just sort of become a dead weight. Princess Kimberly, you're full of oohs and ahs. I don't blame you. This is absolutely precious. If one of them go tumbling down into that burrow, which looks like it's going to happen, Ribbon is not going to be very impressed. Oh, can you hear the little babies? The little cubs? They're squeaking. You can see how Plonk is super curious. I hope it's Plonk. I just want to have a look. Where are the rest of the adults? I thought they might have popped back in already. I'm so confused. Thank you, Lauren. I don't know why I thought June had 2 cubs. So who's the terrible 2 that I've been looking at? Not June's cubs. So who were they? Interesting. You'll have to help me out then. So if June has only got 1 cub, and then Corky's got Plonk. Ribbon has got 2. And Pretty, how many cubs does Pretty have? Does Pretty maybe have 2 cubs? Potentially. Oh yes, that's a big push. Shame. That little one, who's June's cub, is having a grand old time. Right, off you go. Nope, never mind. Gremlins, I was going to send you to the Mara, but that's not happening anymore. You're going to stay here and watch these guys rather. Okay, so that's interesting. So really Ribbon doesn't have much say here with June's cub and with Corky's cub. She's kind of just got to let them do whatever they want. I mean, she's not going to really let them do whatever they want. She's going to reprimand them, but she's got to do easy reprimanding. She's kind of got to implement that thing where parents go, and I know nothing about parenting because I'm not a parent. I do take good care of plants, though. I'll just have all of you know that when you sort of say, right, no, stop it, don't do that, don't touch it, and it's a young kid, they didn't really know what you're saying. Well, anyways, I think I'm going to send you across to Sydney now. I'm not sure if I heard correctly, but anyways, it doesn't really matter, does it?
We were very lucky to see that a black mamba again. So the black mamba just went somewhere in here and he is still looking for something to eat. I could see that. So he is somewhere deep in these bushes here on the right. And he is not worried at all. I'm trying to check where exactly he got disappeared, but I saw that he... So now let's go back to the Nkuhumas, where we were very lucky to see them during the course of the week.
The Nkuhuma lionesses were on the move and apparently on a nighttime mission. Joining together information, the 3 females marched through the darkness, still in the midst of fully waking up. They came across an antelope in the thicket. However, it was no surprise that these notably skilled hunters quickly caught their prey. With the excitement of rumored new addition to the pride, it was clear that these lionesses were indeed of a good meal.
The Nkuhumas just brought us a surprise, as normally the animals which travels in big prides, they normally target something big because they check the energy they are going to lose during the chase. If it's not the energy they're going to get when it comes to feed, they don't really consider that animal. But that day, they surprised us and had an impala as a snack. So I am still looking for these Nkuhumas here in this area. Maybe we are going to be lucky with any of them, or maybe the whole pride. So maybe we are going to be lucky and see the cubs when they are back again, as a couple of them, a lot of them has been mating. So but now let's go back to the tent.
Indeed, it's that time, I suppose, where our leopard chat is slowly drawing to a close, which is sad because I feel like I could go on for a lot longer. Obviously, leopard cubs is just a very small facet of these incredible animals, and certainly, you know, I can sit and talk about leopards for as long as anyone will probably listen to me, which is quite nice, to be honest. Don't laugh at me, Jandre, it's true. It's like you can talk about cameras as long as anybody will listen. And it's the same for me and leopard cubs. But essentially, we kind of have spoken a lot about leopards and the cubs and their behaviors and things like that. And we were kind of had a few clips in the bank, but I thought we'd just show one last one of Shongile and Hosana because they're the favorites amongst all of you. I know that. I know a lot of you like Not Barbara and Tamba and the rest, but these two are so super cute. And so we're just going to play it out, and you can see just how they were with each other. Shongile enjoyed mom's company a little bit and used to get groomed, and she also was so cute when she was small. She had these big eyes and ears, and it's, like I say, going to be so nice if Shadulu brings her little ones across, and or if Tanvi has another litter, particularly if we have two. And then you can see the little troublemaker down at the bottom, as per normal, being the sausage, feasting away. So he'll generally and will be eating and kind of making his tummy full as per normal. Nikita, are male cubs or female cubs more hesitant than males? No, not necessarily. Sometimes it's the male cubs that are more hesitant. The thing is, the males like to stick close to mom, and so you often find them kind of moving around very, very close to where mom is. But if we just stop it there, Emma, and we go back slightly, what's quite amazing with this is that very seldom would you be able to see a leopard feed together. Leopards don't normally feed together. Normally what happens is they'll feed, get up, cub will come feed, move, next cub will come in. So seeing that, where the two of them are feeding next to one another, so you can see there and there they both actually have meat in their mouth, is a very, very, very unusual thing. It's not something that you see all that often, and so that's quite a cool kind of thing. And often people ask, do leopards ever feed together? And that can show you. I haven't seen adult leopards really do it. I've seen mother and cub, but very seldom do they do it. But anyway, if you carry on with it, you'll see that Hosana eventually goes and has a grand old time climbing up trees and playing, and generally being a bit of a clown and doing his thing and learning all about how to get up trees. I wish he would do it nowadays because he doesn't climb trees all that often. Unfortunately, he spends most of his time now down on the ground and kind of moving around there and only up a tree if there's actually food. But in this one, it looks like he was up and climbing. Karula was such a great female when it came to that. Anyway, though, unfortunately, it's that time. Hopefully you enjoyed catching up with all of our characters. Hopefully the Mara's gremlins get banished once again, and hopefully you enjoyed seeing all kinds of cuteness when it came to leopard cubs. Certainly for us, it was really nice to show all of you, and I thoroughly enjoyed chatting about leopard cubs and their different kind of behaviors and different personalities. But from all of us, it's been an absolute pleasure. Like I say, hopefully you enjoyed. Hopefully we'll see you tomorrow morning on our sunrise safari. Until then, see you all next time.